of the main reasons that I became a coach back in 2015 was because I'd lived the majority of my life up to around the age of 40 with huge amounts of fear, sadness, and limiting beliefs that showed up as pretty crippling self doubt. And this state of affairs really affected my relationships, my career, my parenting, and ultimately my health in the way that I treated my body. And what I'm really grateful for is that I became a mum to my beautiful daughter in my late 20s. And the reason I'm so grateful for that is because my drive to be a role model for my daughter is really what motivated me to do something about my life and how I felt within myself at that time. And then I met my first coach, and it completely changed the trajectory of my life. And so up till that time, I had been unconsciously looking for all the ways that I could prove that my self doubts were based on reality. And of course, this is all unconscious, right? It's all unconscious. And I know it's not just me because this is the kind of stuff that I help my clients with all the time, right? And I have been for the last 8 or 9 years. But the way that people spoke to me, the way that people looked at me, the way that people responded to me, all seemed to prove that the little self doubting voice that was in my head was describing the reality around me. But the problem was, it wasn't describing my reality, it was creating my reality. And this is what I'm going to be talking about today. And not only that, but what you need to do to shift this and what I've done very successfully to change this around. Now, recently I shared in my private coaching group the 12 fundamental limiting beliefs and how they're expressed, right? How they show up for people and the origins, like where they come from. And essentially, they're based on really common limiting beliefs that people have around feeling things like that they're unworthy or they're invisible or incapable or they're not good enough or they're powerless or they don't belong. All those kinds of those old chestnuts that pop up for so many people. And the reason I shared them was because when we have awareness of them, we can recognize them, and when we recognize them, that we actually know that they are in fact limiting beliefs. They're not empowering beliefs. They're not the truth of who we are. And a belief, by the way, is just a conviction or some like an acceptance that something is true or real. And often without requiring any definitive proof, right? We just have this thought, we believe that it's true, and just so happens that also what tends to happen with these limiting type beliefs and self doubts is that they go along with negative emotions, right? So that just seems to stack up the power of how real this seems to be, because it's like, well, I think this thing, I feel negative emotions, I'm like interpreting my outside reality to be aligned with that. It must be true, right? But it's just not. And in fact, it can only exist in that way when we're unconscious about it. When we bring them into our conscious reality, we can make a different choice. And it's the power is in our choice. And so when it comes to achieving your goals and creating success or creating anything that you want, you have to be able to shift your focus to the evidence that supports you being able to have what it is that you want. Right? Doesn't matter how big a goal it is, doesn't matter how far from reality you think it is right now, you have to be able to shift your focus to be looking for the evidence that supports you being able to have what it is that you want. And I absolutely promise you that there is plenty of evidence if you make the decision to put your energy and focus into looking for it, right? You have to choose to look for it because your energy and focus is going wherever you've trained it to go unconsciously. Okay, so if there's loads of self-doubt and limitations in your mind, you've just trained yourself really well to look for proof that backs up whatever you've been saying to yourself. Okay, so you're already doing it. You can change that. Now, the thing is, most people have a negative bias where they're just trained to look for things that could go wrong or whatever. And some of it's, human nature. Some of it's learned from that's probably what your parents did, and that kind of stuff. But you can definitely become aware of this and then choose where you want to put that focus instead. So, what I want to share with you is a very simple 5 step process that you can use to get awareness and flip your thinking into alignment with achieving what you want. And when you do this, like you'll be compelled to actually achieve your goals. Okay. So, this 5 step process, it's very simple, right? It's very simple, but like anything, it can be as simple as you like. It's still only going to work if you actually do it, right? So you have to make a commitment to actually doing it. You can't just expect that just by hearing me saying this, that it's magically going to just happen for you. Um, you know, and you might even think to yourself, well, I already know this. But here's the thing, right? This is one of my favorite sayings. I can't remember where I heard this, but it's one of my favorite sayings. And it is, if you know it, you do it. Otherwise, it's just some interesting stuff that you heard once, right? And I don't want this just to be some interesting stuff that you heard. I want you to actually do it. Do it. Be like Nike, just do it. Okay, so here's the simple 5 step process to just flip this thinking. So the first step is that number one, you've got to know what you want, right? You've got to dare to dream big and set yourself some big goals. Okay, because if you don't even entertain what it is that you want, don't expect you're ever going to get it. Right? You have to know what you want. And that seems really simple, but it can be really challenging for people, right? So the easiest way to know what you want is just to think like, okay, if I could wave a magic wand and everything was going to be perfect, what is it that I would have? Right? Think about it. And then don't say, oh, I would win the lotto, because that's just like a cop out of me thinking I'm going to somehow just have something come to me without me doing anything, right? Know what you actually want. If you were going to win the lotto, what would that give? What would that do for you? What would you do with that, right? You got to know what you actually want. Dare to dream. Set yourself some big goals. And these could be goals around your business, around your relationships, around your health, whatever it is, right? Just know what you want. And then the second step is to become aware of your limiting beliefs around that. Okay, so your limiting beliefs are things that basically sound like what some mean person would say to you if you shared your big goals with them. Okay, and because they're definitely not things that your best friends would say to you. Okay, and they sound mean, right? They feel mean, and their limiting beliefs, right? So they also tend to accompany some negative, heavy feelings, right? Which is another indicator that they are limiting beliefs and they're not the truth. Because how do you tell if something's true about you or not? Well, it's how it feels. If it feels heavy and uncomfortable, it's not the truth of who you are. It means that that thought's out of alignment with who you truly are. The truth of who you are feels light and expansive. Okay, so that's the second step. Become aware of these limiting beliefs. Just be aware. Like, what am I saying to myself? Does it sound like some kind of mean person telling me this stuff? Would I say that stuff to someone else? If you wouldn't say it to someone else, you wouldn't say it to your own child, you wouldn't say it to someone you really cared about, then like it's a limiting belief. Okay. Then the third step is, once you have become aware of these limiting beliefs, the third step is to challenge them, right? You've got to challenge them. Like, ask yourself, is this actually true? Right? Like, oh, I'm not good enough. Is that actually true? Right? If people that you love heard that, would they back that up? Would they think that it's true? You would really challenge it. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy, or I'm not capable. if you can't think of anyone who, like, wouldn't believe that's true, I can tell you I don't believe that's true, because I don't know exactly who's listening to this. I know quite a lot of people who's listening to this, and thank you for all the wonderful feedback that I've been getting about the podcast. But it doesn't matter whether I've met you before or not. I know that you're a magnificent being, because you're part of my projection, number one, and you're created by something much greater than you, right? So who are you to judge, you know, the quality of that creation? It's much greater than you can even imagine. So they're challenging, right? Limiting beliefs about you are not true. It's just not true. And then once you've challenged them and you have acknowledged that they're not actually true, the fourth step is to focus on what it is that you do want and look for evidence that you can have what you want. Okay, look for evidence that says you can, in fact, have this. So, what would this evidence be? Well, it could be evidence that you look for and find where you already have some kind of success in your life, like you've already created something amazing. Okay. It could be in other contexts of your life, other areas of your life. It could just be like looking at, well, you know what? I've got a home to live in. And that is evidence that I'm doing okay, because you know what? The fact is, a massive population of this planet do not have their own home to live in, or they live in, some really undesirable kind of conditions. So you've got your own home to live in. You're doing well, my friend. You're successful. You've got a car to drive. You're doing well. You're successful. You can find lots of ways of how you can know and have evidence that you are actually successful in creating things that you want. Okay. You can also look around and see who else like me has the success or has achieved this thing that I want to achieve. And this is why it's really important to put yourself in the circle of people that are already achieving the stuff that you want to achieve, because when you're around, and like I've always said, I'll pay for proximity, right? I'll pay to get as close as I can to the people who are doing what I want to do, because you get to know them as a real person. You get to know, and when you get to know real people, you get to know that they're not perfect. Like, they have their own flaws, they have their own quirks, they have their own strengths and weaknesses. And you get to realize that it's like they're just another regular person who's just doing the things that create the results for them, right? And then you get to realize, if they can do it, I can see how they can do it. I can then see how I can do it. That's really important. Okay. And then the fifth step is to act as if you can. Act as if you are worthy. Act as if it is a given that this is what you're going to do. Act as if you've already achieved it. Take the actions, right? Act as if you do. One of my favorite analogies around this, just acting as if you do, when it comes to creating things in the future, is like Christmas, right? We know Christmas is coming. It's coming sooner than probably you think, now that we're into October. We know Christmas is coming. Now, you don't sit there and go, is Christmas really going to come? Am I actually deserving of Christmas? Will anyone think that it's okay for me to have Christmas? No, you don't think of any of that stuff, right? You just go, Christmas is coming. It's going to be part of, I'm like planning what I'm going to be doing. I'm starting looking to what I need to buy, organize, plan, whatever it is for Christmas. You just act as if it's happening. You don't know that Christmas hasn't happened yet. You don't know it's going to happen, but you assume that it is happening and you act as if it is. This is the same thing that you need to do with your goals. Just act as if it's a given. It's a given that this is what I'm creating. And the only thing the only difference between where I am now and this thing that I'm creating are the steps that I'm going to take that get me there. And so I take the first step, and then the next step, and then the next step. That's all it is. It's just a number of steps that you take, a number of actions that you do that move you from where you are now to having the thing that you decide you want to have. It's that simple, right? It's that simple. So, my question for you this week are, what are 3 things that you can become aware of right now that prove you already are, in fact, successful in your life? It could be something you take for granted, like I said, having a home to live in, a car to drive. You might have a trophy. I've got a trophy for being an 8 ball champion when I was, I think, 18. I'm pretty sure I've still got it. You know what? I was successful in 8 ball at one point in time. It's part of my misspent youth. I was a bit of an 8 ball shark. I can, I can still, I can still smack some balls around. But but what is it that you can always prove that you already prove it, that you're successful in, right? Could be anything. Do that. Find 3 things today and recognize where your accomplishments already are. That proves that you can create what else it is that you want. You got this.